Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through the industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Marcus Schaller. He is a business coach and speaker, and he currently works with entrepreneurs and executives to help them conquer their most frustrating business challenges. He is also the host of your Morning Spark, a weekly podcast. Welcome to the show, Marcus.
Thank you very much, Ajay. Pleasure to be here.
You are welcome to the show, Marcus. You are welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk about. We'll be talking about how one can overcome their most frustrating business challenges. But before we come to the topic itself, let's understand a bit about your own journey, Marcus, from being, from helping a lot of becoming a business coach, a speaker, and also a podcast host.
Yeah, thank you. So I've been in the marketing industry for a little over 20 years. I started with coaching entrepreneurs back in the late 90s, early 2000s on how to develop a marketing strategy. And that evolved into working largely with SaaS companies, technology companies in the last few years on copywriting and messaging strategy. And I've been doing that for the most of the last few years. But there's a big part of that there's a coaching component to that when you're consulting with people. And I had been doing that for so long now, but I really decided that with all the changes going on in the world and all the frustration that so many people have with keeping up with the overwhelming amount of challenges facing them, to really pivot to focusing most of my time now on coaching and speaking and working with those entrepreneurs and also with other business leaders on how to be able to really be focus on the right problems at the right time so they're not completely overwhelmed and they can make better progress toward their goals.
Right, Marcus. So business is not that easy. It may sound easy only when you are working for someone else. Then you'll think, I'll be my own boss. True. And then when you get into the other side, then you find the difficult part. So difficulties are accepted as part of business, whether you realize now or later on. But what are these frustrating business challenges? Are these something different than the day-to-day challenges? Help us a bit, to understand this sort of challenges. What is it that your clients come to you for through that, and how do you manage to solve them as a business coach? Help us understand so that in that backdrop, we actually know how things are happening on the ground. What are the problems business owners are actually facing these frustrating challenges, and how are you able to, help them come out of all this?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, think hypothetically, or people listening, you're running a small business or a larger business, and there's any number of day-to-day kind of normal putting out fire kind of challenges that everybody deals with. But then there's also this more existential challenges to the company, right? So AI is a perfect example right now. Everybody's talking about AI for good reason. And for a lot of companies, it presents a lot of really big challenges of how does this integrate with our goals, with our strategy overall, with our mission, right? So when I think about a frustrating business challenge, it's not the day-to-day stuff where it's like, hey, I need to figure out how to manage my emails better, right? Or I'm a little overwhelmed by, Slack messages. That's a relatively simple problem to solve. You can go on YouTube, you can go on LinkedIn, people can give you advice of what worked for them. And typically, if you follow that advice, you can figure it out. The frustrating business challenges are a little different. They're more abstract, right? So you have, let's say you're trying to build a company. And if you think about the goal of building a business, there's lots of functional outcomes that need to happen in order for you to reach that goal. So you need to have a team in place. You need to find customers and clients. You need to have finances in order. There's all these different big links in that chain, right? And a lot of times, business owners, entrepreneurs, founders who are leading the team, and they're the kind of prime sole decision maker or problem solver, there's so many of these challenges at once, it's hard to even know where to start, right? So it's not even that the challenges themselves are so hard to solve, it's that they're all happening at the same time. And at the same time, all the day-to-day challenges, the little stuff keeps adding up. I mean, I don't know about for you, but I'm sure a lot of your viewers and listeners, they're just on Zoom meetings all day. They're checking email all day. Like they don't even have time to sit and think and have white space to start strategically thinking through this. So a big part of my role as a coach, it's not to prescribe, here's how you solve it, right? I know that's very popular methodology for some coaches, and that's more of a consulting thing. My role as a coach is really to create the space and to know what kind of questions to ask a client. I can look at it from a third party. I can look at it from a different perspective. I can see the field maybe in different ways that my clients can't be clearly seeing, right? Because we all have blind spots. And I'm able to create this space for them to explore these problems, to figure out what's the priority, what's been stopping them from actually solving it. Because a lot of times the real challenge is internal, right? It's our own biases or it's our own assumptions that keep us from seeing better solutions.
Absolutely, Marcus. Well put. Now, when you talk about challenges, then if they have team, then how do these issues get created? Why is it that they are not able to solve those issues as they start getting created till they start overwhelming these business owners? What is their problem? Is it the mindset? Is it the problem in itself? Or is it that they have not hired the right people in their team? Or is it because if they are single or 1-2% operation, then they are not able to manage that? Help us understand either from a 1 to 2 people operation and operations which have a team in place.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of different ways to look at this. One is it is a mindset thing. And I think particularly in the United States, and I know all over the world this exists, there is a mindset of busyness over everything, right? There's this, especially in knowledge work. It's very hard to measure productivity in knowledge work, right? So busyness, how quickly you respond to Slack messages or emails is kind of like a virtue signaling, right? So it's this worshiping of business, of busyness, I should say, of constantly being active, constantly putting out fires. Look at how many problems I have. Oh, look how busy I am. It's like this weird mindset. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges, right? Because it keeps people focused on the minutia, on the minor things that don't really make that much of a difference, right? I think the second part of this is really not having a good grasp of how to prioritize the problems, right? So you're building a company, there's tons of challenges happening at once, but you can't solve them all at the same time, right? And there's a principle called the theory of constraints, which is really just totally changed the way I look at problem solving, which is like every system has a bottleneck. And if you spend your time focusing on the parts of your business that are already functioning pretty well, it's never going to really be that effective because you have a bottleneck somewhere that's slowing everything down, right? So I think marketing is a perfect example. Companies build beautiful, elaborate websites, right? To start out, they go to market with this amazing website, very expensive, but they don't have an idea of what their messaging is, right? They don't have a clear idea of their ICP or their ideal customer. So they've spent all this time optimizing the pretty website, but the bottleneck is they don't even know what to say to the people that actually wind up on the website. And I think the third part of this too is that we live in kind of an advice economy, right? So we go to LinkedIn, we say, okay, I have this problem. And then, we just go to LinkedIn or we get ads or we see emails. Here's how to solve it, right? But the problem is what worked for you, Ajay, in your business might not have anything to do with what will work for me, right? You might have done X, Y, and Z. And at that time and place and for your particular market and your particular business and your particular personality, it worked brilliantly. And you can write on LinkedIn, here's how to blank, 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 right? And I go on it with a completely different, I'm a different person. I'm in a different environment, whatever, selling something totally different. And I go, oh, great, I should do that. And we wind up chasing a lot of like these low hanging fruit of easy solutions, which just keeps us spinning our wheels.
Right. So when do you come into the picture, Marcus? Or is it when they are, knee deep in water, neck deep in troubles? Or is it almost drowning? When do you come in? And how do you get started? How do you get them started?
That's hopefully I get to speak to people before they're drowning. Maybe they're a little bit up to the chin in water. I think in general, and this is an oversimplification, but in general, people don't necessarily seek out a consultant or a coach until they're really kind of frustrated. There's some kind of level of I've been just hacking at this and I can't make any progress. There's exceptions to that, of course, but I think that my first step with people is first and foremost to really listen, to really understand their situation, not only for myself, but also it's amazing how when somebody can actually have a sounding board, they can actually work through, here's what my challenges are, here's what I'm trying to achieve. Somebody who's helping them zoom in and zoom out, looking at it from different levels. A lot of times they can have an aha moment just from sharing that with somebody who's truly present with them. But that's always the starting point. And then as the relationship develops, we start to work together on a plan. Okay, here's where to focus. That's always the thing. It's like, let's start with what is your goal, right? Not even the high level goal, but what is the thing you want to achieve? Let's focus there. And then we can start to dissect that and zoom in on where are those weakest links? Where are those bottlenecks? And when we focus on those bottlenecks, it's really amazing in a lot of cases how quickly you can start making progress and knocking out these big challenges.
Absolutely. So which is a bigger problem, the bottleneck, or is it their mindset? Or again, the focus part means there are so many things at one time that it is even difficult, maybe difficult for you to look at. And how do you get them to understand the way you are looking at those same things? Do you find it challenging, or they understand it very quickly?
Yeah, no, another great question. I think it's if I were to try to pinpoint what is the bottleneck in problem solving, right? It is some degree of mindset. And I think it alludes back to what I mentioned earlier, is the culture of busyness, right? Of we don't really in general, and that seems to be changing, but we don't really value the quality of thinking time, right? We don't value thinking time and white space in our day to problem solve and actually just have space for ideas to emerge anywhere near as much as we value the same Zoom call that you've been on every week that nobody's really paying attention to. It's a very weird dynamic, right? And so I think one of the things I and other coaches bring to the table is it's a designated time, right? It's here's our focus. You are with this person or a group of people, or you're in a speaking event where that's the goal of this time. So it's almost like breaks that barrier. It's like, it feels like work, it feels like, okay, I'm busy, I'm doing something. So it gives them that excuse. And then, to your last question, it's not about me convincing them that my perspective is right. It's not, again, there's different styles of coaching. I practice non-directive coaching, which basically means it's not my job to tell you, my client, how to fix it. It's my job to help you discover what's blocking you from fixing it to begin with, right? Everybody we work with has genius, right? They're all brilliant. And a lot of times the biggest problem is our own, and we all have it, I have it, you have it, our own blind spots, right? We're so fixated. So when you're an entrepreneur building a business, it's like you're right here all the time. And I, as a coach, I'm not like this. So I can look at it from a different angle, and through just a very, I don't want to say it's simple. It's not easy, but it's pretty simple. It's about inquiry. It's about curiosity and allowing the ideas to evolve. And I don't know if you can relate to this, but for yourself, I know for me, our favorite ideas are usually the ones we come up with, right? They're not the ones that somebody else says, here's how to fix it. And it's like, I don't know if I like that, right? Our favorite ideas tend to be the ones where we're like, aha, I know how to do it. I think that's a huge part of this relationship with clients.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One big question is about the customer. Now, many a times, as a business owner, you are fixated on your so many things, but you are close to almost everything, even the problem itself, but forget about the customer, around which you should always be. How do you see this part of the problem? Because this customer, satisfaction or customer service is something which is, this problem is growing day by day, especially, with bots coming in, chat bots coming in, and so many other things coming in. How do you see business owners should keep an eye on this part of the thing? Because If it gets lost behind, all other things will actually not matter. It's around the customer that actually everything has to be built around. Is that a problem that they are not looking at the customer and everything else? How do you look at it as a business coach?
Absolutely. I think that's a massive problem and a huge blind spot for a lot of companies. There's two parts to look at this. You mentioned chatbots and customer service and customer support and customer success. That's one half. That's after you've got the customer, right? And then there's prior to getting the customer. And I think starting with that first part, it's easy to fall in love with your own product. It's easy to fall in love with your own service. I could sit here talking all day about coaching and how much I love it, and but ultimately, the harder thing to do is make the difficult decisions about who exactly you're going to focus on, who you're going to serve, especially with all the different granular approaches now. Forget about even AI and how many problems that can solve, right? So it's like, for me, even like, I could work as a coach with a lot of different people. There's nothing magical about entrepreneurs, but I know for me, that's my sweet spot. That's like my mission, right? So I have to make that choice. And even my positioning and messaging could be more focused, of course, so there's a kind of a fine line, there's a balance. But ultimately, that requires making a hard decision. That requires saying, I'm not going to be everything to everybody. And a lot of companies and even solopreneurs, they struggle with that because that feels like they're eliminating options, and you can get caught in this scarcity mindset, right? The flip side of that is now you've got the customers, right? Well, how do you service them? We all know the cliche advice is that a new customer is much more expensive to acquire than retaining an existing customer. I think what happens is, we kind of take serving the customer for granted, right? We kind of take, oh, well, if I do a good job, if they like the product, then good enough. You have to go beyond that. And I think it's similar even to building our network or building our community or connections with people. We go on LinkedIn, we connect with people, we post a couple of things, or they like it, whatever. We think we have a relationship. It's like, no, you don't. You don't have that kind of a good relationship with 7,000 people, right? A relationship is built on consistency over time and multiple contacts and caring and being curious. So I think once you've done the hard work of getting a client or a customer, like, you want to do everything you can within certain boundaries. You don't want to give away the farm. You don't want to just drop prices for no reason, but you want to do the best you can to nurture those people as people, because you're going to retain them longer. You're going to feel better about what you do. And also that's where the referrals and the word of mouth comes in.
Absolutely. There is much to learn from you, Marcus, and this is just one episode with you. You are a podcast host of the mornings, host of Your Morning Spark weekly podcast. So a lot of people can learn a lot more from you there. Tell us about your podcast.
Yeah, so I've done actually 2 or 3 different podcasts over the years, and I got kind of hooked on the format. I've done interview shows like what we're doing now, and I love doing that too. But more recently, I realized there's a lot of tactical and strategic advice about problem solving itself, some of the things we just talked about, right? That I think it would be delivered better in these smaller chunks, right? So rather than just like overwhelm people with like, here's a system for solving problems, because I'm kind of a problem solving nerd, right? Not everybody is like that into the process. So one thing I thought about doing a few months ago was launching this Your Morning Spark podcast, which originally was daily. I was doing one every morning, and it was too much to keep up with. So I've scaled it back to once a week, where it's basically like, here's a little micro lesson, right? It's 2, 3, 4 minutes, and it's a little concept. And my goal is to build it up over time, and of course, be able to compile it into a book or something that's a little bit more like A through Z. But it's a nice way for people who are kind of trying to get their head around this to start thinking in terms of these kinds of principles to help them just make better decisions and solve harder problems.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As I said, there's much to learn from you, understand from you. So for those people who want to learn more about you, from you, engage you as a business coach, what's the best way for them to do so?
Best thing is my website. It's marcusschaller.com. It's MarcusSchaller.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn, but basically there's links to the podcast and everything is on there. And please, anybody, connect with me on LinkedIn. If you saw me on this show today with Ajay, please just mention that in the connection request so I know. But I'd love to be able to, any questions people have, I'd be more than happy to answer for them.
Wonderful. Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you so much.